show, The Deed. It seems like there's been this big explosion of these sort of investment shows, like Shark Tank and stuff like that. And you're kind of involved in that. Do you see this becoming as big of like a phenomenon as something like Shark Tank has become, for instance?
Well, I hope so.
Yeah.
But I think it's different than a lot of the fixer-up shows that are out there. As far as Shark Tank, it's similar in that you have to. I'm putting up my money. They're putting up their money. So I'm invested in the deal, and I also get invested with the individuals who I deal with because I build relationships with them. And a lot of times you look at things on paper and it's like, okay, this kind of makes sense. And then you get there and you find out that it's something totally different than what was on paper. And by the time you put the money up, you really have to then deal with the issues that go along with what you find. And so it's interesting in the show, you'll go along a journey and you kind of go through those processes with us as we try to finish it out. Not every show ends great and everybody's happy. So sometimes I have to walk away from deals. Sometimes I have to fire contractors. So, but it's the real deal. We go to shoot every day, and it's not a list of things that we're filming. We go to shoot, and whatever happens is what we deal with.
Wow. So, of this season, have you guys finished filming?
Yes, we finished. Yes.
So, what is the most palpable sort of moment in the season that you said, like, wow, this is going to be insane? Like, what did I get myself sort of into?
Well, there's been a few. I mean, each show is different. So one guy bought across the street from a funeral home right next door to like an interstate, and so in real estate they talk about location, and so he already had 2 strikes. He was at. So that was one. This guy was very challenging, and in that episode you'll find it was very difficult because he wanted my money, but he didn't want my advice. And so, but in the beginning, it was like he'd say whatever he wanted to say so he could get the money and get it going.
Right.
But through the episode, you'll watch how we go through struggles together back and forth. And I have money on the line because I'm investing in these individuals.
Right.
So that's one that's a very interesting one. But every one of them, there's a woman that aired last night for the premiere. She was $3.5 million in debt. She had gotten money from her, $500,000 from her family. She got another $200,000 from her husband, and so she was about to lose everything. The bank was going to take it. So when I got in that deal, I didn't know what was going to happen, and it ended up turning around, and it was a huge success. So each deal is different.
Wow. And how did you get involved with such a big project with such, especially you're putting so much money on the line? It seems like there's a big risk getting involved with like a project like this. How did you get involved?
In the as far as shooting with
the
show?
Shooting
Well, the show casted, and they went out and looked for individual deals, and they basically give me like a hot sheet and say, this is what we want you to look at, and it's up to me at the end to decide whether or not I'm going to fund it. But they're the ones that find the deals, and they usually find deals that people through real estate agents or bankers who are dealing with clients that need help, not just financial help, but someone that has experience that can take them through the process.
Right.
So,
okay. Well, thank you so much for taking the time out to speak to me.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. You've previously been known to work for CBS, if I'm correct, right? And now you transitioned to NBC. Was there any particular reason for that switch? Was there a coverage reason? Was there...
No, it's NBC and the Golf Channel are twins, both owned by Comcast, and it made sense to be under that same umbrella. Plus, they pay me more.
That's always a good answer, right? So what got you interested? I heard you previously say that you don't really watch golf anymore because it's a job. I totally understand that. But what got you interested into making this such a commentary? What got you actually into the field?
Well, essentially, I was 37 years old and getting towards the end of what I thought was a playing career, and I happened to be the right drunk in the right bar at the right time when CBS were looking for a course correspondent, someone who knew the caddies on both sides of the Atlantic, who knew the players on both sides of the Atlantic, and could talk a bit. And I was that person.
Wow, that's amazing. So, what's the highlight that you would imagine would be palpable for some of the younger audiences? Like people who don't have access, or people that don't have access to playing courses. Like people in New York City. How would you say is the best entry point for people like that?
Well, find a PGA professional, and go and take some lessons. You can do it in superstores now. You can hit on these simulators or whatever. Find out, what it feels like to catch the ball in the center of the club face and watch it, hang in the air. It's a special game. It's a difficult game, but once, you get the hang of it, once you get the knack of getting the ball in the air and whatever, it'll hook you like a fish.
Yeah, it seems like it's much more of a it's a mental game as well, a lot more than a
It's an
physical
obsession.
one. It's an obsession, right? Yeah. I mean, for someone like yourself, I mean, I could totally see that.
Yeah.
But how did you get over? How did you? You seem like you're a very cool, collected man. Has that helped you achieve your success in golf?
No, I'm basically controlling panic, even right now.
Justin, we're both on the same.
Between you and me, don't tell anybody. Yeah, you know the feeling.
Microphone, yeah.
You know the feeling.
Yeah.
It is though. I mean, television is its own. It's playing in front of the cameras, which I did for 20 years, is a lot easier than being behind the camera or behind the microphone. This is much more of a challenge, but for me anyway, it's much more enjoyable.
That's great. Thank you so much for taking the time out to talk.
Very welcome.
Really
Thanks
appreciate
for
that. Thank you. Have a good one. Golf, I feel like that's something that a lot of Americans are a little bit more distanced from. How do you kind of close that gap for a youngin' like me, I guess you could say?
Sure. Well, in a couple of weeks, we're going to do a tournament that's named for Arnold Palmer, who passed away this past fall. And Arnold Palmer connected with the fans better than almost anyone ever did. And I think that's the key to connect golf with people who don't play golf. A player you like, a player who does things the other guys don't do and can't do. Give you something to watch or something to hook onto. That was the popularity of the Tiger Woods era. He would always do something that you haven't seen other guys do. And I think the players who are out there right now are very, very good. And if one of them can separate a little bit, then I think you're going to reach out to more of the non-golfers and make them golf fans.
Right, and I was also going to say, you mentioned Tiger Woods now and Arnold Palmer. These are figures really in golf, that are up there with like the Michael Jordans and Kobe Bryants. Who do you see coming through the ranks now that you would say, keep an eye on that kid? That kid's really going to change the way that golf is looked at.
Yeah, I think in popularity, Jordan Spieth and Rory McIlroy have the opportunity to do that. They both, in their rivalry, if they're both good for the next 10 or 12 years, that rivalry brings people to the TV too. Like tennis, let's say. Jimmy Connors and John McEnroe, or John McEnroe and Bjorn Borg, they had a rivalry that brought non-tennis fans to the TV. And if that develops between the two best players, one from Europe, one from the U.S., Spieth and McIlroy, maybe that will help create bigger stars out of them and more interest in the game. But those are two of the young guys who I think are the next level of great players.
Everyone loves a good narrative, and especially in sports. Well, I was also going to ask, do you see this sort of transitioning? I was going to actually ask, how did you get interested and involved in golf and becoming a commentator?
Well, when I was growing up as a kid in New York, we didn't have a lot of access to golf. But I did get a few chances to play at a public golf course and really enjoyed the game. And my uncle, who was my father figure growing up, was a big Jack Nicklaus fan. So when Nicklaus would play well, I would watch and be close to the TV. And you always want to go out and try it. The one thing about golf compared to baseball or football is you can go out and try it and see if you can be good at it, and do the things that you see the best in the world do. And I was able to get out and play a little bit of golf. Went to college and found places to play. And am I the greatest golfer in the world? No, not by any stretch of the imagination. But I love the game. I have a passion for it. And I think that relates directly to the fans at home. So it's a sport you can go pick up and try. I think that's the one thing that separates golf perhaps from our other major sports.
I was actually going to also ask, last question. There's a lot of mixture that now golf is seeming to have. I always go to Prospect Park and I play football, soccer, soccer golf.
Right.
Yeah, so I was wondering, do you think that would be a viable option to, bring it back to the earlier question, mesh it with younger audiences and kind of create an easy access point, I should say.
Well, they've looked at a lot of things. They've even looked at playing 6 holes of golf instead of 18. 6 holes of golf might fit more of a time schedule that people have. Certainly 9 holes. Make that something that's acceptable. And in 2 hours you can do it as opposed to the 4 hours that 18 holes take. Because candidly, 4 hours is tough for a lot of folks to carve out now. So there are things like that. Anytime you get people around a golf course, hopefully they see the sport. So if it's disc golf or soccer golf or those other concepts, maybe it'll inspire one person out of the group to try this game that the Scots invented back 4 or 5 centuries ago and has really endured over time. So there's no great panic for the sport, but as people and society evolve and people are less patient and need to get things over quicker, perhaps shortening the round of golf will help bring new people to it. It's a great sport. It's a sport for life. And the other great thing about golf is we could bring the best golfer in the world to a golf course with me right now, and we can play a match. There's a way to balance it because we're not playing against each other. We're playing on the golf course, trying to score on the course. So if there's the handicap system would say give me two more shots per hole to compete. So he would start with a handicap of 2. And we could compete. You can't do that in almost any other competition where you can compete with the best of the world. So that's the uniqueness of golf. And I think if people can kick the tires and explore it, then they have a chance to fall in love with it.
Great. Thank you so much for taking the time out to talk to me.
Thank you. Nice to meet you. Thank you.